welcome to my cellar. 2025. We'll see. Hey Tim, have you DM'd your modules, that is Weaver Queen or Snake Riders, with friends or strangers, that is online or at conventions? If so, how did it go? If not, what do you think of doing this in the future? Well, glad you asked. Yes, I have. I have done both. I have run both at cons, and I have run them with the Weaver. The bits there were bits and pieces of the Weaver Queen that I ran for my local group here back when I was writing and finishing them and that, and it went real well. We had a lot of fun playing it. There are several ways to die in both. There are several ways to have fun in both. Snake Riders is a gas. It's just so much fun. For both sides, I believe they have as much fun as I do. And what's especially fun for me is the island of Arredondo has carnivorous apes on it, bands of them, and there are some semi-trained still around. Without giving away too many spoilers to the backstory or whatever. And one of their favorite tactics is flinging poo. And there have been several parties that were just covered in ape poo. And of course they stank for the rest of the adventure. And there was a great deal of laughter and mirth surrounding being covered in ape poo. It's also quite lethal. There have been some horrendous, on the part of the adventurers, horrendous deaths. And there have been some brilliant insights and intuitions. I ran them back in the day when I was writing them, and getting, Eldridge did publish Snake Riders. I may even have a few of the old. I think I do. I think I have a few of the old, very first printings with what we called our Sports Afield cover, because it was a cut and paste job, so we could get these to a con. I think I still have a dozen or two out in the garage. So if there's any interest in the old original first printing from Eldridge, let me know. I'll be glad to work something out with you. Because as I recall, that was part of a final settlement I got when Eldridge went and fell in its keister. So I have many more hours invested in those books that I'll be able to redeem. They're both fun to play. Weaver Queen can be especially toxic. There's an instance in there where invariably the party did not think out what they were doing. They got part of what was going on, but missed the more important part of what was going on in this one encounter in there. It's quite lethal. It got several TPKs at a Total Con one year when I was trying it out there. And having recently published the Gary Con Adventures that I wrote for the first two Gary Cons, I'll be running those at Wizard Con in April up in Michigan. So I enjoy writing stuff and then playing it on people, and I don't care if I'm play testing it on guinea pigs at conventions, or it's already a finished product and they're going through it. Either way, I certainly enjoy getting that feedback you can only get from a group or a playing thereof. All right, we have a report. Long last, I thought they were gone. From the school library club. It's wonderfully pedestrian. We have the newbie group in conversation with a pair of manticores. Ooh, that could be fun. And the older group is trotting through a student DM's Dark Souls theme campaign. In the spring, we'll have a campaign return from last spring we call Curse of Ravenloft, using the material from the 5e Strahd, but following Hickman's original module. Entering our third spring since starting, we have just over 20 active members and about half a dozen alumni. Encourage anyone languaging for want to play to inquire at their local library about starting or assisting with a club for teens. Yes, I was supposed to be doing that at our local library. We're working on some details of how we're going to put up stuff at the school, and we've been hit with once every couple of decades type snowstorm here in Cincinnati, and been pretty much immobile for several days, and it's going to start again tomorrow afternoon, and we'll get another 2 to 4 inches. So next week I'll be talking to the people at the library. Count me among those interested to hear your battle reports from Shadow Dark. No. What I'm going to do, I agreed to do, is I'm interested in doing, is reading Shadow Dark and studying Shadow Dark to go on. I backed the Kickstarter, eager to try it out, and it's sat on my shelf unused ever since. Too many games, too little time, the ever-present problem. Oh, God, isn't it? What's your opinion of the art and art style? I can't give it to you yet, but I will. I promised Jim, who loaned it to me, that I would. But it's just, when I sit down to look at a new game, whether it's something I think I might want to play or just something that I want to look through that I've heard much talk about, it's got to be a certain state of mind, and I've not achieved that yet. But I will. And no, I don't go into a spell and sniff special herbs or chew mushrooms. That's just, if I want to be fair to something, I have to have a certain mindset going in. Recently, I bought a set of miniatures and rules for a skirmish format of Warhammer 40k called, this is still the school team, called Kill Team, don't tell my wife. Hoping to get into some fun battles with my sons on the kitchen table. Did you ever play any of the Game Workshop's games or the later miniatures games? No. Do you have any special recollections from when Steve and Ian from Games Workshop visited TSR? No, I met him and was pretty much kept away from or whether it was, I wasn't involved in what they were there for, licensing and stuff. I don't know. But very little interaction. Hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. That's about it. Another recent pickup was an old copy of Fight in the Skies. Oh, yes! You lucky dog! The best flying simulation game, and I make a distinction between games and simulations, or the rare combination when they hit the sweet spot between them in the Venn diagram. And it's on Fight in the Skies. Great game. I hope you have a blast. Hearts of Iron 4, yeah, PC game. I've heard of it. I don't think he's interested enough to go full steam into Bold Action or Black Powder. Well, but I'm telling you what, Fight in the Skies has very simple mechanics. Because it's not about knowing complex mechanics. The mechanics are very simplified rules of flight, lift, drag, aviation, all condensed into here's your plane, here's how many squares it'll go in a straight line at these speeds. If you climb, here's how far you go up at a turn and not as far. It's all super-duper simple. The tailing system technique is relatively simple, and I say relatively simple when you consider how complex two kites chasing each other across the sky, relatively simple. I've played the game since I was at TSR. I was so heavily into it that I used to paint the counters so that they all look different. I have a map now that I got from a former member of the Soviet Union, I think. That's printed on a big gray map. Printed. It's got a little village over here and trees, and that's superimposed very faintly with 1-inch squares, which align to the game. I love the game. I've loved it forever, and I hope you do too. It is role-playing. It is role-playing. Limited, yes, but you can only play when you have to be playing at a certain period of the First World War. You have to commit to a period of time. When you commit to play during that period of time, the planes available to each side are what was historically accurate. Now, you play during that time, you play the game, nobody dies, everybody makes it back. Somebody might have won because they were out to photograph, whatever. Doesn't matter. Winning and losing isn't that big a deal in this game. But the subtleties that come from dogfighting is all the player. It's simple. All those dreams you had when you were flying, they're here in this game. It's you hit a big jackpot with that game. Okay. Okay, he recommends a book named God's Reign to anyone who plays or GMs Pathfinder, and it kind of lays out how it works. So it's a easier slide into Pathfinder. Okay, then his next is, we'll take my leave to go watch the Cellar tour. Thanks for the video. And that refers to the fact that I did a little video with my phone around my cellar for the Patreons, and sent them all a link. Jim did on New Year's Day. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Couldn't agree more about the gambling business and Hasbro. Going to speak more about that later. It's already hard enough as a parent in the age of instant everything from your phone. And so Happy New Year as well to the main man to blame, your electric editor. I got you, Jim. Push to all would-be club sponsors. WotC will supply a free starter set with some extras plus a D&D Beyond Master sub. But even better, Troll Lord Game has an outreach program and will set your club up with castles and crusades. So hey, set your club up with whatever you play. Doesn't have to be D&D. It's all role playing. It's all how we like to role play. It's all the same. It's role play. It's theater of the mind. Maybe D&D gambling makes sense to the Hasbro folk. After all, the game does use lots of dice. Again, we'll go later with that. Eat what you kill? No. You gotta pass backwards. Eat what you kill is for the monsters. The party, on the other hand, should be engaged in Operation Pay Yourself. I must be dense. I didn't understand this first time. 3 bowls later, I still don't understand it. Pay yourself. Yeah, when you're out killing shit and taking their stuff. 2-part question. First, for years, you've said that the time period was lightning in a bottle. After your answer about how most of you working on D&D that time period was lightning in a bottle. It was. After your answer about how most of you working on D&D in those early days were all on the same page, seems that lightning in a bottle wasn't just the time and place, but having a great teamwork well with each other, which is rare indeed. Well, I may have misled you there. The only 2 regularly working on D&D were Gary and me. Rob Kuntz interjected some ideas and material. Some of the later supplements he had input into. His name's on the cover. Jim Ward would occasionally just throw out an idea. Hey, have you ever tried this? Or I've been doing that, or whatever. So he had the occasional input. But the team was Gary saying, okay, we need a book of this. And ostensibly lining up a couple of people to write it. And I put it out. And I edited it. So the team was 2 full-timers and a couple part-timers, because at this point Dave had gone away back up, and was no longer contributing anything at all. So it was Gary making up the most of it, and then me making up some of it, and buffing and fitting it together from other people. So it was lightning in a bottle. It just all swirled around like being in the center of a giant thunderstorm without the noise. Okay, I recall you saying years ago how you were blessed as editor of Dragon because artists were sending you stuff rather than you have to reach out and find it. There wasn't just artists, it was good writing too. Are there any particular pieces or artists that really stood out more than others? Well, I guess you could say I discovered several people that ended up working for TSR. D, Otis, Diesel, all did stuff for me first, and then got stolen by the parent company. Tramp is above and in a class of his own. Tom Canty ended up going on to do cover illustration work. Morrison ended up going on to do other illustration work in later years. That's what really stands out. And yeah, people were sending me stuff over the transom. That's how I discovered a lot of these people. Over the transom is an archaic and dated term referring back to the time when office doors had a second little window up above them. The doors were usually of glass, but not always. The one above always was. You opened it or closed it to evade the ventilation. And when you wanted to slip something in unnoticed rather than put it on the floor under the door or it might get trod upon, you slipped it over the transom. When we announced that and teased that there was going to be the creation of a magazine out of the Bones and Skeleton Strategic Review, people just started sending us stuff, art and articles, just out of the blue. And some of them were good, and some of them weren't. But I always had enough good ones. And by good, there was different stages of good. Good come in, just clean up the punctuation. Those were few and far between, but always well loved. Pretty good, mild buff, publish it. Good ideas, needs work. And I published a lot of the third category. When I had the time, I would, right? And I had the idea that if I liked it and found it interesting, everybody that read the magazine would also. And so I had free reign, and people sent me all manner of stuff. And remember, I was also doing Little Wars, which was military, historically accurate. It was history and simulation and miniatures gaming. And I had people sending me over the transom, whose names I later saw underneath their heads on the military channel or on the history channel. They were sending me stuff while they were still in college, before they started writing books. So in that regard, I was blessed. There was a pressure there of creatives connected to what we did, and it wasn't just TSR D&D. It was all the gaming, the miniatures, the boards, and everything. There was this pent-up pressure that when I said, okay, we're going to do this magazine, I got bombarded by great stuff. I got there first. So, like I said, lightning in a bottle. Eat What You Kill in a Dungeon is the premise of the Netflix series Delicious in Dungeon. Well, I never watched that. While a fun little show, the way it plays out reminds me of the first edition AD&D days when, after every encounter, we broke out our collected Dragon magazine articles which detailed what components were needed for various potions and, we'll say, harvested everything we killed. Troll blood for potions of extra healing was almost a staple. Led to many of his adventures when someone got the bright idea of exploiting a troll's regenerative abilities to provide a constant troll blood source. Never ended well for us. The experienced among us just got as much as we could and then burned the carcass. Clerics can now create food. I'm sure model will get boring, but you can survive. Well, okay. Now, if you want to take it to extremes, certainly they can. If you're playing straight up AD&D, clerics say spells. The way I play it's different. Mine say prayers. Yours say spells. They don't have enough physical components to create food to feed 5 to 7 big burly adventurers for 30 days. Come on. It's not happening. So I'm sorry, that one doesn't work. Not if you're playing by the rules. Now, if you're not playing by the rules as written, I don't care. I'd still say that by the end of 30 days, whatever they were finally able to produce was bland, liquid, and listed. Listed. No, not listed. Different word. Bland, liquid, and crap. Porridge with no taste. I don't know. Again, we're taking things to extremes. You can always find a what if. I don't deal in extreme what ifs normally. Stay for a season in a dungeon or anywhere. Goodberry fixes it all. One spell to make you never need to eat again and heal you 2d4 for every bite. You may not be aware, but this eat what you kill in the dungeons is a thing right now, and there are a few game systems or mods for it. I have zero idea why. This tastes foul, even worse than the last shit you just ate. Just doesn't seem like a fun game mechanic. No, I can't either. And a spell that you never need to eat again, I would have steady, small, eventually very debilitating effects upon the target of that spell. Don't tell me magic crap, because unless magic makes things happen, it doesn't always make allowances for who it makes it happen to. Think about that. It's bound to sap something out of your body, out of your soul. On abstracting components. While I don't usually bother with material components for most spells, obviously alchemy needs materials. I do abstract things there by default, with each potion or powder requiring so many silver pieces of materials to craft, and this presumes the alchemist has access to a town or somewhere they can buy them. However, I'll often have abandoned alchemy labs in dungeons, and the reagents found therein counting for greater than their market value in crafting potions. For example, the party finds a jar of sulfurous powder worth 25 silver at the market, but could count as up to 100 silver to use to make invisibility potions. Okay. Any DM, any group of players should go into the amount of detail they wish to. There are groups that love the gritty stuff, and there are groups that I cater to, admittedly. And, this Sunday I'm doing a game for Okinawa again. There are some groups that I cater to that are much more the adventure and not the rules. And that's fine. Whatever floats your boat. Whatever floats your boat. If you do it that way and your group's happy, you must be doing it right for them. Great. Great. Hasbro Gambling? You mean like a collectible card game where the card packs cost $4 but might have a $20 card? Well, yeah, that's any collectible, isn't it? People, there were years, I remember, when people were buying sets of Topps and Upper Deck baseball cards and opening them all to find the expensive ones. And if they knew how many were in each set, and so it was worth more to them to pull out the 10 or 11 that were worth a lot, relatively speaking, and junk the rest. Or if they were little kids, maybe they used clothespins and clipped them on the wheel holder on the front of their bike, so they flapped in the spokes. It sounded like a paper motorcycle. All right, now last time we talked about stopping the game at an arbitrary point, and I've got a couple good responses in that regard. As far as the everyone has to finish up back in town by the end of the session, the only thing I could come up with is, okay, you folks had 3 hours to accomplish whatever the goal is and get out, because at the end of that time, the big bad guy will be back and do a TPK. Or the castle fades back into an alternate dimension. Or the volcano erupts, destroying the dungeon, etc., etc. I'm now tempted to do something like this and try to set something up that makes the adventure some kind of race against the clock. I know that adventures have been written that against the clock thing. I don't know if any have been published. I've played and run games where, I once ad-libbed a game out in Boston where everybody had these newly minted gold pieces that they'd been paid partial wages for in their pockets and pouches and purses and whatever, that they now could not remove, and then have been told that they either fix their screw up or at a certain period of time those gold pieces would erupt with enough, they're going to lose their legs and groins and pelvises, and it was not going to be pretty. So I've played like that before, just to give the players a reason to want to go out and do what they had to do. But that's cool. When I ran a 2.5-hour West Marches style of game, where the party had to be back in town at the end of the session, I used a concept that personified death. Kind of like in the old Gauntlet games, when you open a treasure chest and a Grim Reaper type monster would pop out and come at you. I always set my alarm to 30 minutes before the session ended and gave the group a warning that death has entered the dungeon. That was their cue to leave before something ominous and bad happened. It worked more or less. The party didn't explore any more of the map after the warning and started making their way out. We never found out what happens when the time is up. That's cool. It works for your group. I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. If it works for your group, it's great. And, gaming, and particularly role-playing, in my opinion, is not about playing by a set of rules. It's about playing with each other, enjoying something communally, having fun together, in whatever sense, gist, or milieu that group fits in. Okay, now, I got four things. First one's not at all gaming related. I'm going to have Jim put up, if it isn't still, the link for the Wild Animal Sanctuary. I recently started a fundraiser in honor or in recognition of, or whatever, of my 76th birthday for them. And I would hope that all my regular viewers would take the time to go look at it. And if they don't believe that they're as cool as I'm telling you, okay. But if you do, give them $5. Last year I didn't raise but $370 or something like that. This year I'm going for the grand total of $399. And hope you go look at it and see that I think they're astonishing what they do, and the animals they rescue, and I think preserving the genome and the diversity is so very, very important. Next. Now I'm not sure. I saw a video this evening before I made this. A video. Not a meme or something. A video. By, I don't know, she has a funny sort of British accent. And according to what I saw, Hasbro announced that they've culled all the other races out of the game, and you can be a dwarf, no elves, no tieflings. And and that every player, and this is what makes me wonder if they didn't just pull everybody's leg. Every player at the beginning of their adventuring gets a free baby dragon. Like just out of the egg, bonding on you, etc., whatever, I don't know. If that is the case, that's the ultimate giveaway, and they might as just well call it the Dragon Riders of Pern, because that's what everybody will do. They'll grow their dragons up and learn to fly them and fly against each other. Or, the British, there's a, I'll think of his name again in a minute. Temeraire. Okay. Everybody's got dragons. And gunpowder. So, when I'm listening, and I only listen to 7 or 8 minutes, I just had this big WTF resonating in my head. It's just, it's like, if this is true, and apparently Hasbro or WotC has made a big change in the upper management, if this is true, it's like chopping bits and pieces off of yourself to stop the bleeding. I have no, hooking up with the gambling. Now the gambling. All right. Maybe, I don't know yet, maybe they're just going to license a whole bunch of crap on slot machines in Las Vegas and Monaco. I don't know. Maybe that's all this is going to be. I don't think so, but maybe. Maybe that's what they're going to do. You'll be walking through the airport somewhere where it's legal, and there's a Cuthbert the Mighty slot machine. People that know the history know that Cuthbert was the first arch cleric, and yada. Anyway, maybe that's what it is. Now, I saw something else interesting on social media, and it caused me to pause and think. There is a company, and let me preface what I'm going to say with anybody that finds a market and exploits it without cheating anybody is okay. That's what capitalism is, and that's how it works. Doesn't mean that I have to understand it. In this case, I don't. If you go to a quality museum and they have miniature little dioramas or examples of house or something like that, people that are well trained and meticulous in their work have put together these examples and these exhibits. You don't have to be any of those things, well trained, meticulous, or anything. All you have to do is own a good enough 3D printer. Now, I make a differentiation between the type of terrain like Dwarven Forge and its other imitators. All right, that's terrain. That's hunks of wall, pieces of floor. Now that's not enough. Now apparently there are gamers, or probably not non-gamers, miniaturists, who aren't content with doing hunks of floor or parts of walls. They want to do an entire market. And I'm not condemning this. I'm baffled. I simply don't understand how this aspect of the hobby grew up. And in this market, there's vendors, booths, and all the accoutrements of a market, and then there's vegetables and bread, little tiny loaves, little bitty teeny weeny loaves, and little bitty fishes, and everything you could want, again, if you got the printer, to build your own museum quality exhibits of a medieval market, for instance. I'll bet it'll be grand when it's done. I just confess that it's like dollhouses run amok. I don't know. And I know about dollhouses. I've got great-granddaughters, and I have 2 dollhouses upstairs and back in the playroom. And those dollhouses come with a gazillion little plates and jars and glasses and little crap you can step on and murder yourself with. But now we got it for fantasy role players. Interesting. If people want to bring down the cost of eggs, then find a cure for bird flu. The bird flu has wiped out a hideous percentage of the laying hens in the United States. There are fewer eggs, therefore they cost more. I think they call that supply and demand, not some magical economic slide rule process. And speaking of slide rule processes, here's where I'll close out on the night. And here's where I have to tread carefully. According to Mark Zuckerberg, the insanely entitled gazillionaire, there's going to be no more fact-checking on anything on Meta because it was causing division. Well, yes, when people were spewing bullshit and lies and they were faced with the facts, I guess, yeah, there was a division. Here was bullshit on one side and the truth or the facts on the other. Well, now there's no more. Now, who do you believe? That's what's happening. Because anybody can say anything. I could go on Facebook and print a meme that said Mark Zuckerberg was caught molesting the Easter Bunny. And nobody would stop me. And there it was. And in the recent couple of days, you ought to look on Facebook at some of the hilarious stuff people are posting on there. Obvious, very, very obviously having fun with the fact that nobody's gonna check anything they say. Now, we already have a problem with facts and people believing lies. Our incoming president, when he was last president, was proven to have told over 1,100 lies in a very, very short period of time. But nobody cared. And there were websites that were checking stuff and finding it, Snopes. Yeah, I think that was what it was called. You check something on Snopes, and you could rely on Snopes to tell you whether it was bullshit or not. I mean, online in the last year and a half, just as one example, Pawn Stars, the American TV program, and Corey, the son of the owner, supposedly died, and didn't, but it was all there on social media. Corey, and elaborate stories about how his tragic death relating to drugs and whatever. And Chumley, another guy, he's dead. He's died a couple of times and gone to prison. And this is when they had fact checkers. Wow, what a wonderful, interesting life we're going to lead for the next several years. Our lives, our very existence will be in the hand of oligarchs. And I used to teach history. It's hard to believe that what I used to teach pertained to the country I find myself living in now. And then, on that disheartening thought, I'll just say to you all, Todata Govi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
The curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory, Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.